Good morning. I'm Chris Brennan, Wholesale Marketing Rep at Sprague.
And I'm Joel Williams, Director of Refined Product Sales here at Sprague.
Welcome to Sprague's Refined Products Review, where we share what's moving the market and the insights we see every day. Well, Joel, we highlighted Iran. That was the thing to watch last week, and that sure came to fruition. Last week, you mentioned the risk premium was largely built into the market for the U.S. attacking Iran. So, what have we seen happen since then?
Last week, when we approached this, I would say what the market was most likely expecting was clearly there was a high degree of confidence that the U.S. would be striking Iran, which has happened. And then with that, there was the expectation of the loss of any Iranian oil making it to market, as well as some issues with the Strait and some other things going on there. But what we have seen that I think that the market didn't expect was really the amount of disruption that we've seen, and it's been Iran has really seemed to have taken a if I'm going down, I'm going to take you all with me approach to hurt anyone outside of Iran who is part of this. And obviously we expected to see Iran counter at some U.S. bases and stuff. And for our industry, the big thing is that they're going after, quite honestly, the infrastructure, the energy infrastructure that comes out of the Middle East. So we've seen, attacks on refineries, loading ports for crude and refined products, and we're seeing the full closure of the Strait of Hormuz. So that's been something that wasn't fully expected from what we had said last week.
Are there any global challenges arising from this Iran situation?
With the Strait closing, you're seeing the transit times for crude and refined products coming out of the Middle East vastly extended. You're seeing the freight rates because of those transit times and because of the additional need for ships to continue moving products going way higher. We're also seeing insurance rates. If it is available, insurance is becoming extremely prohibitive, which is creating incredible costs for moving products. And so, ultimately, you're seeing a huge impact on the shipping of those products. And then, with that, these increased prices are, that we're seeing in the distillate markets and oil everywhere, are having massive economic impacts. If it's a prolonged situation we see going on here, it certainly will have some negative impacts on the global economy as well as particular, countries' economies throughout the world.
How about the supply situation back in the Northeast?
There's still a lot to be determined here, so I think we're going to have to see how this plays out over the next couple days. Demand is on the decline right now. Obviously, we have some warm weather next week. It's going to be shorts and t-shirts weather in New York and DC, so that will help ease some of the demand. But on the supply side, we just came out of a pretty heavily backwardated month. It was just under 10 cents, which means that most suppliers are probably running a little bit lighter than they would like to be, to help avoid that roll. And then, after a backwardated month, you also see very few trades in the harbor. So we'll kind of see as this week goes on what the trades take place. But, when you look at that, you're talking about people basically coming in, with some on the lower side of our supply. And you're looking at a huge, backwardated roll now over 20 cents, for next month. So you're seeing a big incentive to not carry too much inventory this month from the market. It's kind of screaming at everyone to liquidate what they have. So a lot of suppliers are going to be hand to mouth, and that's going to make it challenging. So, we'll see how each supplier is kind of, able to adapt to that. And then I would say in terms of the overall Northeast, I mean, the biggest wild cards we have out there, LNG a little bit. I mean, LNG is very impacted by the Middle East. And we all know that if natural gas prices go high enough, that will create some oil switching. I don't think we're going to see that, but obviously if it does, that becomes a game changer. The biggest worry, I would say, is really around Europe at this point. What we saw during the Russia-Ukraine conflict was that Russia had provided so many of the distillates and the LNG to Europe historically. And when that was cut off, the Europeans immediately jumped over to Pad 1, the Northeast, to get that product. Eventually that smoothed out and they went to the Middle East because it made more financial sense to source from there. What we've now seen is the Middle East potentially being cut off. So there is some thought that at some point that will come back to the Northeast again. So, European, demand and kind of sucking some of the distillates and the LNG out of this market could play a big role. It's still kind of early to tell with demand declining, but that's something certainly we'll be watching over the next couple weeks.
Any last thoughts you want to leave our viewers with?
what I would say to our customers is to stay calm. In the end of the day, you guys should all be buying what you can sell and selling what you can buy. The price could go up $1 or down $1 from day to day. So, you really want to go back to back as much as possible. And you're going to expect the erratic pricing. And you're going to see a lot of middays coming out, quite honestly, as this market kind of skyrockets up. So, you got to remember that, suppliers like us, we have oil coming in and going out every day, and we're fully hedged. So we kind of look at our inventory as a large pool. And that value of that pool is constantly changing. And so just like on down days, SRT allows you to gain the advantage of the inventory value going down. On up days, unfortunately, middays are going to be required because the value of the inventory and the cost of that inventory is going up every day. And it allows us to kind of manage our supply and ensure that we're able to stay wet for the market. The final thing I would really want to say is that, same thing I would say every week, which is to partner with a supplier that you can trust. As a consumer out there, you should ask as a reseller out there, you should ask yourselves, who do you think is doing the best job in planning and navigating these events? Who's proactively and honestly communicating with you about what's going on out there? And who do you believe is going to, be there for you when you need it most and to keep you wet? And to continue to nurture those supply relationships. We're certainly going to do our best here, and I think that we've shown this winter that we can, and this is going to be another instance. So again, thank you very much to our customers, and everyone stay calm, bear with us. We're going to get through this just like we get through everything else. So appreciate the chance to be able to talk to you today about that.
Well, thanks for joining me, Joel.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Be sure to mark your calendars for our next special feature, a panel discussion with Sprague's Women in Leadership, releasing this Friday, March 6th.
Well, that's all for today. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll be back next Wednesday with another Refined Products Review. Refine your insight.
Fuel your success.
Joel Cam marking. Just once. All right.
I do everything twice as good as him.
At least.
Boy.